Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Mr. Pandaria raiding guide, and in this video we're going to be taking a look at the 10-man heroic mode version of the Spirit Kings in the Mogushan Vaults raid. Now in order to complete this fight we use 1 tank, 3 healers and 6 DPS, however you could choose to use 2 healers and 7 DPS, but your healers do need to be switched on in the brain and be aware of everything that is going on. Now there aren't many differences between the normal mode and heroic mode version of this fight, however it is advisable that you do have a good understanding of the normal mode encounter, since a lot of the abilities are carried over and there's only one of 2 major changes. So before we take a look at the new abilities that have been implemented into this heroic mode encounter, let's take a look at some of the normal mode ones that have had changes made to them. So the first one is the way that the bosses actually spawn, and they will no longer spawn when one boss is killed. So if you kill the first one, the second one spawns on normal mode. If you get the first one to 30% health on heroic mode, the second one will spawn, and then you'll have 2 bosses up at the same time, and then you'll obviously have each boss's set of abilities to deal with. Now this can be relatively difficult, and we'll just speak about it later on in the video. The second ability that gets changed in the heroic mode that is also in the normal mode is Kriang's, I think that's how you pronounce it, never been good with names, his flanking auras ability. And this is where he will send a row of the Mogu warriors chasing after you with spears, and they pretty much kill you if they touch you. Now in normal mode you get 1 row of Mogu warriors chasing you. In heroic mode you get 2 rows, and they spawn randomly around the room, and at some point during the Mogu march, I guess you can call it, they will cross their paths, so you do need to be aware of where you're going to position yourselves. So as I've already stated, each of the 4 bosses will gain an extra ability in the heroic mode version of this encounter. However, these abilities do have rather long kind of cooldowns of about a minute long, 50 seconds to a minute long. So if your DPS is good enough, say you have, 7 DPS, there's a chance you can only see these abilities once, maybe even twice, while each boss is alive. So these bosses' abilities are a little bit, they can be a game changer in a sense, that they will wipe your raid if you do not take care of them properly. So you need to make sure that everyone is aware of what's going on, as I've said 50,000 times already in this video. So in no specific order, let's take a look at the boss's new abilities. So Kriang the Merciless will gain a new ability called Impervious Shield, and this will place a shield on himself which will make him immune to all incoming damage, and while the shield is up, if anyone attacks Kriang, the damage will be retaliated back to the attackers. Now this shield is dispellable, and that's what you want to do as soon as possible, and if you have watched our kill video, we actually get people to just full on stop DPSing the boss, because it just makes life easier, no one's taking extra damage. Now this shield can be dispelled by abilities such as Mass Dispel and also Shattering Throw. Xian's new ability, Xian of the Endless Shadow that is called Shield of Darkness, and I'm sure you can see a bit of a trend here. Don't worry, it doesn't carry on throughout the whole fight. And this is again where the boss will place a shield on himself, which will deal 300,000 shadow damage to the entire raid if any damaging ability hits him while the shield is active. Now this shield is a magic effect and can be dispelled, so this means you can use abilities such as Shaman's Purge or a Priest Dispel magic, and also Mass Dispel. These are highly useful. Now Meng the Demented gains a new ability called Delirious, and this is a buff which the boss will gain, and it will cause him to gain twice as much insanity as he normally would. Now this buff is actually an enrage effect, which is really useful because this means that you can get rid of it off of him, and by that I mean you can use Hunter's Tranquilizing Shots, Druid's Soothe, or maybe even a Rogue's Shiv ability in order to actually calm the boss down, I guess you could say, and stop him going absolutely crazy. And now the 4th and final boss, who is Subtai the Swift, will gain a new ability called Sleight of Hand, and this is a 10-second buff that the boss will gain, and this will cause any attacks done to him while the buff is active to debuff the attacker, and this will reduce their damage done and their armor by 50% for 25 seconds. However, when the sleight of hand ability is active on the boss, he can be stunned, and your raid should make sure that you're not attacking Subtai if he has the sleight of hand buff on himself and he isn't stunned. If he is stunned, then feel free to attack him, and if you do chain your stuns well, then you are able to stun him for the whole 10-second duration, and this is obviously 10 seconds of free lol time attacking the boss and not taking any damage in the raid. Now, sometime back, Blizzard actually hotfixed this boss, and the bosses will now spawn in a specific order, and that order is Kang the Merciless, who is the first one that you get. Then you get Subtai the Swift, Xian of the Endless Shadow, and then Meng the Demented. Now, we used Bloodlust Time Warp Heroism at the first transition, so when the first boss was at 30% health, and then we had the second boss spawn, so we had Kriang and Subtai up. This is a little bit of a pain in the arse combo, I guess you could say, because if you're trying to dodge the Annihilate for Kriang, and then Subtai is casting his volley ability, of course it's heroic mode, so everything is dealing a hell of a lot more damage, and you need to just make sure your positioning is spot on in order to dodge abilities such as that. Once the first transitions happened, the rest of the fight becomes a lot easier to manage, and that's a promise more than anything. Also, for the first transition phase, you do need to make sure, even if you do have Bloodlust active, that you are killing Kriang off in time, because if Subtai fires his arrows up into the air and pins you down to the ground, he obviously targets a single player with that ability, and if you're all stacked up, everyone's going to get pinned to the ground and you're not going to be able to break anyone free, so it's going to turn into a bit of a disaster more than anything. So that's going to do it for this raiding guide. I would highly recommend that you go to my channel and watch our guild skill video of this boss, because I have put the vent communications into the video so you can actually hear how we speak to each other during the fight. It might be a bit of a guidance in order to see how we communicated with the shields and also with stunning rotations, so it might be of use to you, it might not. So as always, thank you for watching, and if you're interested in future Mists of Pandaria raiding guides, then please do feel free to subscribe to the channel.